Finding an excuse to leave Jenna was just a matter of letting her nature take its course. I don't remember what the fight was about. I do remember throwing the trash bag full of clothes into the truck and heading for Shooter's house. I planned to lay at my friend's place until the takedown, about a month out. First night away, my cell phone started blowing up with calls from Jenna. I didn't answer, letting voicemail pick up. The first went something like this: "You left me. I'm delivering your baby next month, you motherfucker." I didn't listen after that. Swear to God, Jenna called me every damn name in the book, several times a day, alternating between begging and cussing me to come home. When she realized she was getting nowhere, she had her daughter start leaving messages. That beautiful little girl had recently celebrated her 5th birthday. "Come on, Daddy, I want you to come home now." Man, it was gut-wrenching. Found out later that Jenna was strapping Sierra to her Dodge Caravan and driving around town looking for Daddy. She had a notion I might be at Shooter's place and would sit in the minivan for hours outside his house waiting for me to appear. She never did catch me though. And I wasn't the only one getting harassed. Jenna was so pissed off that she was running scorched earth campaign with the Vogels, calling their old ladies and sharing all the gossip about who's fucking who. Guess she figured if she couldn't have me in her life, neither could the Vogels. The situation got so out of hand that Big Roy pulled me aside after church one night and asked me to put a stop to it. "Your girlfriend is making a fucking mess," said Roy. "You gotta do something." "You handle it, man. I'm done with her. Just go back to her, would you please? The bitch is out of control." I couldn't though, not until the takedown. Meanwhile, old Joe was miserable, getting an earful from Jenna day and night. He'd sneak out of the house just before sunrise and meet me on the corner, where I'd pick him up and drive him to work. In my experience, there was no man more straightforward and more trustworthy than old Joe, and he was having real problems with all the deceit. One of my former specialties, the guilt was chewing him up. "How's she doing?" I asked one morning as he settled into the cab. "Not good. She sits around the house crying all the time, George, and she doesn't eat. If it helps, tell her I'll be coming home. I just need time. She thinks you've gone back to Christy." Jenna's old man was calling me too. His daughter was burying him with distraught calls and making him crazy. I stayed in touch with Bill during my time away, occasionally dropping off money for rent, bills, and groceries. I tried to reassure him the split was temporary, that I wouldn't abandon his daughter and Sierra. "She's hard to live with, isn't she?" he said while flipping burgers one day in the backyard grill. "I guess you know about that, Pops. You know, I have to tell you, George. I didn't know what to make of you when we first met. Still don't. I never have understood this role we're talking about with the Vogels. There's the tough guy, George, who rides around the bikers and acts like a gangster. And then there's this other person who cares about people and tries to help them out. I really don't get you, but I like you. Just wanted you to know that." Bill's little speech was heartfelt, and I decided to give him something back. It wasn't the reason I'd asked for our meeting that afternoon. "Listen, some shit is gonna be coming down soon. I think you might be happy about it. But then again, maybe not. Whatever happens though, I just want you to know I've never done you wrong, not intentionally. When have you ever done me wrong?" I paused a moment, then said, "I'm not who you think I am." I reached into my pocket of my Levi's and pulled out a folded piece of paper, the same paper John Carr had handed me at his office almost 3 years before. "If something happens to me, call this number. The man that answers can explain everything." Bill took the paper and glanced at the scribbled phone number. "What's going on, George? Are you in some kind of trouble?" "I'm sorry, Pops. I know it sucks, but that's all I can tell you right now. Just don't share that number with anyone. It's only for you, okay? And only if something happens to me." Bill studied me a long moment, visibly concerned. He was trying to read between the lines, but couldn't. I wouldn't allow it. "Okay," he finally said, and shoved the number into his pocket. Jenna had her baby shower at Bill's place a few nights later. Billy's sister was there. So was Jenna's mom, her dad's new wife, and several of the Vols, including JB and Buckshot's old ladies. Must have been a bittersweet experience for my fiance, because when she got home, she told old Joe it was time for him to hit the road. To have him around was like holding on to the past, Jenna explained, and she couldn't live with that anymore. It was too hard. So my buddy showed up at Shooter's place that night looking for a place to crash. Shooter gave him the travel trailer parked at the side of his house, which was roomier, at least, than the 15-footer he'd once called home. During the 4 weeks I remained separated from Jenna, I occasionally snuck back to the house on a spirit circle to grab the things I planned on taking once the takedown happened. Usually, I conducted those stealth operations when Jenna's minivan was gone, but a few times I tried going in during the early morning hours before she rolled out of bed. And that's how I got caught. I left the truck in the driveway and crept into the garage to root through some tools. Unaware, little Sierra had seen my arrival and had run and tell mommy I'd come home. All of a sudden, the door from the kitchen swung open and there stood Jenna in her Vol-stretch pajamas, belly pushed out like a python digesting a pig. Baby Bear had awakened Mama, and Mama Bear was pissed. "What are you doing here?" she growled at me. "I'm not staying, just came to get a few tools, that's all." "You're not leaving me again," she warned, coming towards me with claws out. "You're gonna be here when your baby comes." "I'll be back for the baby, Jenna, but now I'm taking these tools and I'm going." "You're not going," she said. There was no talking to that woman once she got her back up, especially at that hour of the morning. I could see where things were headed, but couldn't stop it. Jenna threw a tantrum that would have made any 5-year-old proud. Meanwhile, the actual 5-year-old was trying to contain the situation, pleading, "Mommy, be quiet, and Daddy didn't do anything." "It's okay, baby," I told Sierra. "Daddy's leaving. But I'm coming back, okay? I promise." "You're not leaving me again, you piece of shit," screamed Jenna. I refused to play her game, especially with Sierra watching, so I reached for my truck keys on the workbench. Jenna got there first and snatched them away. When I asked for them back, she kicked me. When she tried again, I lifted my foot to block it, and she ended up flat on her ass. Jenna immediately went to DEFCON 1, nuclear war imminent. "You're going to jail, motherfucker," she exploded. The girl dusted herself off, disappeared into the house with my truck keys, and called the cops. When the Emmett police arrived minutes later, my fiancée waddled out of the driveway to meet them and demanded I be hauled away for assault. Now, from across the street came cockeyed Pete in his jeans and t-shirt. Pete was one of those neighbors who always seemed to know what was happening around the hood. You could fart, and that dude could tell you what time it went off. We'd been friends since the day I'd saved him from a Vago's beatdown at an Italian restaurant in town. Iron Mike had resented the way Pete's lazy eye had been looking at him, so I'd been forced to step between them. "You saw what he did to me, Pete," Jenna railed. "You saw George hit me." "Didn't see it that way at all," Pete told her. "Saw you hitting and kicking George, though." When Jenna realized I wasn't going to be dragged away in cuffs, her next move was to jump into my truck and lock the doors. While the cops knocked on the glass and politely asked her to step out, Jenna was frantically rifting through my glove compartment, the center console, under the seats, and behind the visors. I don't know what the hell she was looking for, unless it was some evidence I was cheating on her. Or maybe some drugs the law enforcement couldn't bust me for. When the girl realized there was nothing to be found, she stopped tearing the cab apart and emerged from the truck. I think those cops might have hauled her off to the nut ward if she hadn't been so pregnant. Instead, they returned my keys and told me to hit the road. Glancing over my shoulder, the last thing I saw was Jenna standing in the driveway, barefoot and pregnant, still jawing those paws.